Hi, good morning from Norway. It's 9 o'clock in the morning here, and wherever you are, whatever time you're watching this, welcome. I'm sitting here with my morning coffee actually, and today we're going to talk about beliefs and belief systems. And speaking of coffee, I used to think that I didn't like coffee. For the longest time I didn't actually like it very much. I didn't start drinking coffee until I was 25. And my dad believed his whole entire life that I didn't like coffee, so he was always surprised. No matter how many years I'd been drinking coffee, he had an ingrained belief that I did not like coffee. Well, here you are, and I didn't even think I would ever have a morning coffee, but here you are. I'm enjoying my coffee. And I'm doing this today because somebody said to me, oh, it's almost like coming to a tea party. So it's my little coffee party here. Welcome. Yes, beliefs and belief systems. And I'm going to continue a little bit on the coffee bit. Because when I did my healing and my reading and my training to open up to all this intuition that I have inside of me, or this clear vision, which we all have access to. But I did this training. We did lots of exercises in discovering things about ourselves. It was a beautiful self-development process, the whole course. It was fantastic. And one of the things we did was to try and discover what in ourselves, what our intuition told us about how different aspects of our lives influenced us. And one of them was grounding. What grounds you? Now, of course, the obvious one, the one that we all talk about, is, nature, of course. Walking out in nature, barefoot on the grass, that will ground you. And then at this same course, somebody asked, why don't we have coffee here? Because they only had teas. We only drank teas. And they said, well, you don't want this stimuli. You want to sort of be as clear as you can in yourself. And so it was, a little bit of this coffee not being good for this kind of work sort of thing. And there's one guy who was in the course, in his grounding meditation, discovering what grounded him. He discovered that coffee was one of the things. So he brought his coffee in every morning. And it was so interesting because it just goes to show how when you tune into yourself, to your own wisdom and to your own intuition about yourself, your life, your place here, what works for you, then you'll discover something that maybe goes against what everybody else thinks. So this guy, he discovered that coffee was a big thing for his grounding. And where everybody else was sort of afraid of coffee because it would disturb us in our very intuitive, high-frequency work. I'll just never forget that, because I also had this belief that coffee wasn't really good for you, and we do. So this is the question today. What beliefs do we have about anything? And I'm not necessarily talking about religious beliefs here, because that is a very personal matter. And the only thing I would maybe ask is how much of your religious belief is truly yours. So, and how much is a system put in place for you. There are some beautiful concepts in the religious. The basis of them are as far as, I'm not going to get into it because it's going to get political and difficult, but the basis of love is, as far as I can tell, the main concept of most of these beautiful ideologies and religions that we create for ourselves. So again, I apologize if this sort of gets into something very touchy for some people, but what I'm talking about here is belief systems that make us act and react in certain ways that we are not even aware of are there. So some of them come from our parents, some of them come from our peers, our friends, our teachers in school, some of them come from society and from generations of beliefs. So for instance, this this battle for women to try and find their own place and their own self-confidence. This is an old ingrained belief that women, that come from the story of women not being intelligent, not being strong enough, not being, and so realizing that it's not just something that you believe in yourself, it's something that you've inherited, so that you can sort of distance yourself from it and discover your own strength in yourself. So this kind of awareness of what's really going on. Now, it's very, very powerful, and it's healing once you manage to do it, once you manage to notice and see it. And again, coming back to the women, men issue, but also you have the racism, it's a little bit of the same. If you realize, if you notice in yourself, that you have some sort of instinctive reaction to some type of person. It can be maybe somebody, the way they have their hair, or maybe because they're a woman or a man, or some culture. Notice it. And we don't like to call ourselves racists, but these reactions might come from an old ingrained story, and you might even not realize that you still have it, even when you think that you don't. So and the thing is, in this issue, this is a very, very touchy subject, I know, and I might step on some toes here, but I think it's very, very important, because these hidden beliefs of ours, they stop us from shifting, and I think they also go under the radar very often, so that we don't notice them enough to be able to shift them. So even if I claim that I am not prejudiced to other people, but then if I notice that I cringe maybe, or if I shy away from some kinds of people, then that's something in me that I've inherited that I haven't dealt with yet. And we all have it. And in one way or another, in relation to people, in relation to, I mean, my father, he used to tell me that rich people were bad people. He hated rich people because he was all for fairness. He was all for equal allocation for everybody, that everybody have and somehow he managed to sort of project the idea that being wealthy was a bad thing in itself. And this was something that I inherited in many ways, and it's become a belief system in my relation with money, with finance, with my own worth, with what I'm allowed to want and dream for. So this is just one example. This was his own ingrained belief. He had something in him that caused this belief, and he had a beautiful idea of equality behind it. But we sometimes mix these things, so that, I mean, you can still wish for and dream for good things for yourself, and at the same time wish for equality in the world, or for everybody to have a beautiful opportunity in their lives. So acknowledging and noticing these fears that we have, fear of other people, fear of money, or judgment about things, about ourselves particularly. Maybe you think that you have to be pretty to be, I mean, a certain way of pretty to be loved, or clever, or well behaved, or act in a certain way. Maybe if you have lots of money, you think that poor people are stupid. You know, we have all these things that we don't like to admit about ourselves. And here's the point. When you start to acknowledge that you are a human being, and you are, what shall I say, part of this world, part of society, part of all the stories that have developed in history and around you and in your peers' stories. And once you realize that you have the power to choose your stories, that's when things start to get interesting. That's when you can start to dare to look at where you want to go, what kind of belief systems you want to embrace, and then move towards them. And I'm going to say one more thing about the hidden belief systems, because, and this comes a little bit from maybe from the Freudian system, or at least the idea that we need to dig deep in order to heal. And yes, it's very, very beautiful and good and interesting to learn about yourself, to get to know some of your stories, to get to know where your patterns come from. But you're never going to discover everything. And the more you dig and the more you repeat your stories, your old stories, the more your brain is going to think that this is continuing, this is still happening. Your brain doesn't know the difference, and this has been proven and shown in neurology and in psychology. And your brain doesn't know the difference between when you remember an incident and when you actually experience it. So your body thinks it's happening, your brain thinks it's happening when you keep repeating those old stories. So yes, going back and discovering through therapy, through talking about things, through regression, through looking at whatever stories in more intuitive ways, releasing them. It's a beautiful opportunity to discover so that you can move forward, so that you know where to go next in order to release the old. But we don't need to, because you're never going to discover all of them. Somebody told me recently, I think it was Mike Dooley, or he showed me in a book, didn't tell me personally, of course, that in ingraining or looking at the belief system you want and giving that energy, giving that focus, that will start to replace the old system. So it's like we know that our neurology, the thought patterns that we create in our mind, the more we repeat them. Now, if you repeat a fear, if you repeat a worry, it's going to get pretty ingrained. It's like a path in the forest. The more you walk it, the more clear it's, the more fundamental, or the more obvious and clear and visible it's going to get. Sorry about it's a bit early. And the path will be clear for everybody to see, but it'll be easier to walk as well. So every time you repeat a thought pattern, this happens in your brain. It gets clearer and easier to repeat it. Now, in order to stop that pattern or to break it, you don't necessarily want to try and fight it, because that gives it energy again. You keep repeating it. You want to create a new one. And so you replace it with a different thought pattern. And I'm pointing to the different time. This, of course, obviously not how it works. It's just to illustrate. If you start walking a new path, that will, with the old one, will get overgrown, and you'll be able to create a new path through the forests, the one you want. And so when you start envisioning where you want to be, what this feels like, when you start looking at the kind of belief systems you want to live your life through, whether it's in relation to other people, do you want to be able to acknowledge everybody? Maybe it's wanting to trust that you are allowed to dream for a life of abundance. Then find out what belief systems are in that kind of existence. People who live an abundant life, what belief systems do they own? What do they live by intuitively often? Or maybe they've worked with it. But there's a different belief systems, because if you believe that you're never going to have enough, then that's the belief system that you will be living. And of course, that's something you've learned. That's something you've adopted, maybe from society, maybe from a parent, maybe from some sort of story. And if you exchange that, knowing that and envisioning yourself in a situation where you know that you have enough, then you will start to accept and receive enough, more than enough. You will start to make choices so that this happens in your life, and your belief system will be different. So to put it simply, this one point, changing your belief system is a very powerful way. I mean, choosing a new belief system is a very powerful way of shifting the old one. Probably more powerful than going back and repeating the old one to try and discover what they are, because you'll get stuck in digging deep. we don't need to do that. We can explore life and move forward from here. Doesn't mean you don't acknowledge where you are, because that's actually maybe the exercise I'm going to give you now if you want to explore this, is to try and acknowledge, see what belief systems you can recognize without judging yourself, because this is just something you've adopted and learned. So even if you discover that you see somebody, the way somebody's dressed or the way somebody look, and you react to them and you, oh my God, whatever thought comes to your mind, just notice it. There's a belief system. Wow, okay, I didn't realize, I haven't thought of that before. Or you've pretended you don't have it because you don't want to be a judgmental person. Of course we don't want to be that. We want to be good people. We want to feel good about ourselves. You can still feel good about yourself even when you have these judgmental thought patterns that are old, part of your old story, and that you now want to shift. So this is quite something that, as you can see, engages me quite a lot, because I know I've discovered in myself, and particularly the part of not judging yourself as you discover things with yourself. So I've discovered a lot about myself in the last few years that I'm not necessarily very happy with. I wouldn't necessarily approve of a person harboring those belief systems if they voiced them or acted upon them. And you do sometimes act upon them, even though you don't realize it. But looking at them has enabled me to think about what belief systems I want to have and which ones I want to release. And at the same time, acknowledging you won't be able to see all of them. So focus on, what kind of a person do you want to be? What kind of a... Actually, my son said that recently. He'd been complaining a lot for a while, and he was a bit miserable with things happening this summer. And I snapped at one point because it had been too much, and I was sort of striving to make him happy. And I said, you've been complaining, and I, sort of shouted at him, and that wasn't very nice. But it sort of, I had had enough, and he got quiet, and he sat there for a while, for a long time. And the next day, we talked about something, and we brought this up again, and he said, "You know what? I've thought about it. This is not the character I want to be. So I'm sorry. I'm gonna think differently now. This is." He acknowledged that way. He acknowledged, for one thing, that was something that he had been doing. He had been complaining. He acknowledged that this was not something he wanted to do. And so after that, he changed. Now, my son, he's quite unique in some respects, in those respects. Not everybody managed to do so. But once you become aware of these things, once you become aware of what you want to be, who you want to be, what kind of a person you want to be, what kind of a life you want to live, then you can choose what belief systems you want to harbor, you want to strengthen in your thought patterns, what path you want to choose and grow, or not grow, clear, and let the other ones grow, so you don't need to go the old ways. So that was my reflection, my thought, my belief system on beliefs and belief systems and what we can do with them. I hope it made sense. Like I said, it was a bit I'm a little tired today, so I was rambling a bit, but I enjoyed chatting and talking about this. On Wednesday we will do a little bit of an exercise on how to focus, or choosing maybe a situation or a kind of a life that you want, and then adopting the belief systems from that kind of a situation or that life or that person that you want to be. But for now, I just invite you to explore and experience whatever you can experience in this realm. What do you notice about your own beliefs, your own actions? Actions come from belief systems. They come from thoughts. Thoughts come from belief systems. So just notice and try not to judge yourself. Try not to lash out on yourself. Be kind to yourself. This is something that you've just taken on in your strive to be a human being, given the situation that you've been given. And then and see if you can just have a little thought about what kind of a character, what kind of a person do you want to be? What kind of a life do you want to live? And then we'll do a little work on Wednesday, so you're welcome to join me then. For now, I'm going to do the centering that I often do, very shortly, briefly, to sort of connect you more to your core, to your heart, to your center, so that you have a connection to your own intuition, to the place in you where you can choose from. So that's the aim of this centering exercise. And I'll do the 3 breaths this time again. So if you take, because we scatter our energies around in all kinds of directions, all kinds of dimensions. I mean, both time and space. We go to other people, we go to places we need to think about, we go to worries, we go to the future, we go to the past. So with our breath now, we're going to imagine that you can bring all this energy, all these thoughts in. So breathe in and just imagine that you're pulling yourself together, as it were. Pull yourself together as you breathe in into the center of your body, and as you breathe out, feel how this energy gets anchored down into your tummy, into your hips. And breathe in again, bringing in more of your own energy into yourself, into your center. As you breathe out, feel how this anchors down into your hips, into this base of your spine. And the last time we're going to anchor you to the earth. So breathe in the rest of your energy that's still flying around anywhere, somewhere. Just imagine you can do it. Pull yourself together into the center, and as you breathe out, feel how this energy anchors down through your hips, through your legs, all the way down into the ground, so that you're firmly grounded on the earth and connected to Mother Earth. Beautiful. And if you like to close your eyes, or if you already have, that's fine. You don't have to. Bring your hands to your heart if you can, or just imagine. Focus on your heart center. And see if you can feel and sense your own essence. What is you in there? What does it feel like to be you in your heart? Who are you in there? This is your center. Feel, is there a color maybe? Or is there a sensation? Or it's probably not possible to describe it. Just what do you feel like? Who are you? That's it. Breathe into your heart, acknowledging this is you. And from this place, you choose your way forward. Breathe in into your heart again. And acknowledge yourself for being exactly you. And the last time, breathe in again and feel gratitude for being you, for this sensation of being you, whatever it is. And from that, I bid you a beautiful day. Move forward, knowing who you are, acknowledging who you are, observing whatever comes, and give a little thought to what you want to do, what you want to be, who you want to be in this world. Okay. Many blessings to you. Take care. And join me on Wednesday if you can and if you wish to. Bye-bye.